Okay, welcome back to Nuance with Nikki. We've got another episode with author Philip Arnell. Is going to be telling us about his new book today, another one that's coming out. For those who don't know about your books, sir, can we just let people know about the three books? Well, is it four now? It's four, isn't it?
This is my fourth book that I wrote in 3 days. Right. Imagine that.
What?
I got up 2 weeks ago at 2:30 in the morning, and I said to myself, I got to write a book. And literally by 5:30, I'm on the bus, headed to the train to go to work, and I'm like this on my phone. And I'm looking like a madman, that's going all over the place. And within 3 days, I had it done. Within a week's time, I had it edited. By that Friday, I had it out and about. Now, I can always add to it. It's only 60 pages, but it's a follow-up to the MGM Perspective.
The MGM Perspective.
A guideline into the mixed world. This one is called, I hope you can see this, Life of a Dark Mixie.
Life of a Dark
Mixie is basically the experiences of being a darker complected mixed race person. You could be an MGM, you could be a biracial person, there's different combinations as we've already spoken about. I have lived my life always being proud of who I am culturally, nationalistically, and racially. I am a dark complected, multi-generational, mixed race Caribbean American. Mm-hmm. Now, because of, I guess it's stereotypes, people automatically think that mix is just two different parents. Yes, mix is two different parents, but it also can be something that's generational. The best way to describe my own personal description would be, I am a mixed person who came from two mixed race people who came from two mixed people that before them came from monoracial and mixed race people who could be white, black, or mixed.
Or
and people are now, pardon?
Or anything else too, anything else as well.
Right, exactly. These are new ways to describe people. So it's starting to catch on relatively quick. I happen to put out that same sentence that I just gave on the mixed race sites. And they were like, wow, this is a great way to describe it. So I said, yeah, when you break it down, you know your background of your families. So if you are mixed race, this pretty much simplifies it. I hate to use the term simplify because a lot of people will say, oh, to simplify it, I'm just one thing. I can't do that because that takes away from the people that I was raised by and I grew up around. That would be unfair to them. So this is how I represent myself totally.
Okay. So I just want to ask, are there people who would consider you a dark mixie, or are you speaking about other people? And I just want to give you my perspective on that as well.
Sure.
In your world.
Well, actually, it depends on what circle that I'm traveling in.
Right.
If I'm in the Caribbean, or if I'm in an area where there are people who are multi-generationally mixed race, it could be, let's just say anywhere in New York. I blend right in. They can tell I'm a mixed guy. Great. But there are other circles where you're going to have people who have not been exposed to the world. Even if they have traveled, they still have not studied people to see what they are really all about. They don't take the time to have that interest. There are those, if I say, okay, I'm from a mixed background, you are? Because they see the darker complexion, and I'm not even a dark complected person. I'm more of a brown skin.
You're right in the middle of complexions. You know what I mean?
I'm always traveling. So when you see, I always go someplace hot because New York can be cold. I'm always coming back with a tan. And people can't seem to understand that. Even if I was very dark, you can still be a heavily mixed race person. They automatically see your skin complexion and they put you in that box. They ignore the hair, they ignore the facial features, body type, all of that. There are some people who could be, oh, wow, I didn't know that. You didn't say anything. I'm not going to walk around with a sign on me that flashes, hey, I'm mixed. You should be able to figure it out. I don't have to bring it up. If it's brought up, I will then speak about it, and that's it. There are people who have been of all different types. There have been Asian people. There have been Indian people. There have been white people. There have been black people who have come across with this same type of way of reacting to whatever it is I've had to say. And it's funny where they say, oh, you are? Oh, and even some mixed people. Mix is still something very new in society in terms of being accepted. It's been around from, at least in America, mixed people started mixing or becoming mixed during slavery, at least for black and white relations or experiences, that put it that way. We all know how it started, and we all know how it changed to be two consenting adults having a family and what have you, for the most part.
Agreed.
A lot of people think that the mixing just stopped when slavery was over. No, or rather, they give that impression. It goes way beyond, because if that were the case, I would not be here today. Granted, my family is not from here. They're from another place. Slavery ended way beforehand. But these are things that actually happened afterwards. And it was nowhere near as intense as it was here, where in some places that if a black and a white person got together, they would be jailed. Anything could happen. They could even be killed. There's some horrible stories that have happened in personal history. What is it? The Loving case is one of them.
Yeah, Loving versus Virginia.
Right. Have you ever looked at the lady from Loving, Mrs. Loving? She's a mixed race woman, or rather multi-generational mixed race woman. Right. And a lot of people don't see that. And it's like, as soon as I saw the information about them, when I first learned about it, so I said, oh, okay. They put anybody in a box. Growing up as a dark-complected mixed race person, it can be challenging. It depends on where you are. You can fit into different circles. Some people just see you as one thing alone. And that's not an insult. It is just something how people perceive you, or that's what they figured out on their own. Those who are open-minded enough will ask you who and what you are. Those who are not all that versed will be the ones who will put you right then and there. And they will get insulted, literally insulted, if you say, no, I am not this. I am this. Oh, you don't want to be like me. No, that's not a question of anything. A part of me is like you, but a part of me is like someone else.
Right.
Oh, you still don't want to be. And I'm like, whoa, hey, if the police stop you, well, I can be stopped for any reason. Hopefully no one will stop me. I have yet to in all these years, but that is something that I don't think about every day, I guess, because it's never happened to me. It sounds a little bit
I can't deny my mom or my dad or my grandma because the police might stop me. It's not really a practical. Yeah, I'm sorry, but people need to stop thinking about mixed race identity in a monoracial way. My question is, which of your family would you deny to make me feel racially comfortable if the tables were turned? Which of your brothers are you going to deny to fit my definition of who you are? Sorry, I'm sorry, my family looks like different complexions. Just so we're clear, gunman comes in the room, the last thing I'm thinking about is who's got straight hair, who's got what complexion. A lot of mixed people, don't we? What's that thing called where we have like one complexion and another? Do you know what I mean? Where you're kind of light skinned.
Oh, vitiligo?
Yeah, vitiligo. Aren't there more? I've noticed more mixed people have that than anybody else, which would make sense to me.
I've noticed that too.
Right?
I have noticed that too.
We're more likely to have it. And yeah, so no, I'm not denying my family for you, okay? Especially me, someone who was born in 1986 when the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act and the Immorality Act was only repealed in 1985. Okay? Wow. Where I live. And so it's just like, no, I'm a product of my parents' defiant love. Defiant love. And that is many, many mixed race people's story. There's nothing about mixed raceness that is black and white. Yes, some came from slavery. Some people actually loved each other. Some also came from the fact that there were men in ships that were Christian men that had been on ships for a long time with no other people but men around them. They come to a country where the women are walking out with their breasts out. They're going to get curious. If that culture is a culture where sex isn't taboo, which many indigenous cultures were, guess what is going to happen? In some cultures, it's a normal way of
people are going to connect.
Some cultures, okay, I know I've heard this about the Inuits. I'm not sure if I'm right. You know, it's not anywhere near me. But I remember that I read somewhere that if you were in your igloo and a visitor came, you would lend him your wife to keep him warm. Right? Again, wow. I might completely have that wrong.
Talk about congenial.
Right. But there are cultures where that happened. We always want to look at all these things as black and white. Sorry, some people docked. Some people ended up with shipwrecks, and then a clan saves them. I don't like the word tribe. Okay, I don't hate the word tribe either. I just want to know why one side of my family is called tribes and another side isn't. You know, so that's another discussion, right?
Let me tell you, I have been in rooms with my family where there were outsiders who were also invited. This has happened on a number of occasions. Now, for my first cousins here in the States, they are all much fairer than I am. I am the darkest of them. My cousins, first cousins, overseas and extended relatives, they are more with the different skin tones. I have been in a room where you have different relatives from whoever, whatever walk of life, who have been very, very dark to very, very light. And to me, they were just family. Now, those outsiders that came, if it happened to be an event where more of the lighter complected people were there, they would say, "Who's this guy?" And oh, well, that's my nephew. He is, yes, and it is an uncomfortable feeling. And so I'm one who I've always had a slick tongue, but I always knew when to use it, when not to use it. One time there was an event where this one guy was noticing how everybody in the family looked alike. And so he said, "Well, how does he fit in? He doesn't look like anyone." And so I said, "Well, you're just looking at the complexions. Look at the facial features. Okay. My father looks just like me, only thing with freckles, and he has jet black hair when he was a young man. His siblings were all clear or white skinned with red hair and freckles, or auburn hair and freckles. He went through his own things, being described as the five of them, four clear and one dark. That works on your mind. I'm sure it does. And I know that it has affected him in some ways as well. Color was never an issue in my house growing up. I'm the darkest of the three children. I have one sibling that has bluish green eyes, another sibling who has brown eyes, and we're three separate complexions. Now, I never bought into that stuff. I was only made aware of this as I had gotten older. And when I went to another event, I was in the bathroom, and this was for a cousin. And so the guy says, "Oh, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you?" And so, "How do you know such and such?" "Oh, well, he's my cousin." "You don't like any of the family." So I said, "Are you related?" "No." "You don't like another family at all. Why don't you look at the facial features?" Right?
Thank you. But more than that,
little things like that can be very insulting. I have a cousin who's, oh gosh, this is now at least 30 years ago. I was working in Macy's Herald Square, and I had a coworker that was there. And so she was visiting me from where she was from. And this guy had taken a liking to her. And, she had taken a liking to him as well, too. I'm just curious. And so I said to him, "Hey, listen, my cousin thinks that you're a nice person." "Who's your cousin?" "Oh, that girl over there." "She's your cousin?" And this was a mixed guy. "How is she your cousin?" So I said, "Well, she is my cousin because of XYZ. Okay. And I wanted to just pop him right there because he was just so rude about it. I don't think he meant to be, but his ignorance is just what caught me by surprise.
Right.
And so they had went out, and, he was respectful. He was nice, and, they had a nice time, but she did not live here. So nothing developed of it. But the fact that this guy came from a very dark man and a white woman, you think that he would know better. And there have been other occasions where I have a cousin who looks like Vin Diesel, but even lighter than him. Okay. And so someone had asked me, "Oh, do I know this person?" So I said, "Oh, yeah, that's my cousin." She goes, "Your cousin?" I said, I wanted to say, "Yes, colorist," but I didn't. I have to pick and choose where. As I get older, it's getting harder and harder to not, keep my tongue between my teeth. I think what's therapeutic about this book is that I was able to vent a lot of things that had disturbed me for a number of years that I never spoke about.
Great.
And I've known people.
Sorry to interrupt. It's interesting how you were just kissed by the muse there, and it just rolled out of you. But it's almost like you've been writing it in your heart and spirit for years.
Yes, it has. These are stories that just played through my mind, and I said it's time to put it on paper. And it's a follow-up to the MGM perspective because this is a part of the MGM experience. Now, a lot of people say that there is a major difference between MGMs and biracial. And to some degree, there is. In a biracial household, you're going to have two totally different looking parents. You're going to have two sides of your family that look totally different. When you're an MGM, everybody is pretty much going to be mixed. You're going to have various skin tones and so forth. But for the most part, it's pretty much even across the board of what everybody is going to maybe look like. But there's a
Right,
lot
but
of
that's
diversity, a
not
lot of
like
variety.
the main focus, right? Because I mean, I think we can even have those extreme looks, if you will. But what I think some of us MGMs are luckier is you're not navigating mixed raceness alone. You've got at least
Right,
one parent,
exactly.
yeah, who kind of, you know, if you know what I mean by.
I
They can
totally understand.
anticipate things. They can set up your life. Like I love what your parents did, because I actually gave us advice on my thing on Nuance with Nikki, which by the way has been quite quiet for a while now as my year is starting. But that when you have a child in the early stages of their development, I think it's important to keep your mixed kid away from any kind of racism. Just keep them with
Yes,
fluffy,
that's what
nice
we did with our
people.
kids as well too.
Brilliant. So that they can learn like you know, just like wiping themselves and just crayons and just normal kid stuff. But
Just be a kid.
yeah. And I want to know what you did with your kids and ask you this. I do think that by the time they kind of reach puberty, it's important to actually expose them to a certain amount of racism. I'd like
It
to know what
wasn't
you
until I
think about
started school that I realized that there were differences of people.
it. Okay, you wanted
Looked
to
at
tell
my
me about your
family, they were just my family, that's it.
Wow.
And I loved it, you know. And those are one of those days are gone but not forgotten.
Mhm.
It's a learning experience. I think that when you have children, let them be who they are, and they'll grow up with the knowledge of, oh, I'm a kid. That's a kid over there too. They
Mhm.
say we look different, but I didn't notice until you told me. All right, so we look different. He's
Right?
still a kid.
I didn't notice until
Exactly.
you told me. Was
Right.
totally my experience. I didn't even know I was supposed to be insecure about being mixed race until I went to go sleep over at some racist family's house. To be fair, I did
Mhm.
know they were racist beforehand because my friend had said it at school. But there was this weird thing where I believed at that stage that I had the magical power to change racists if I was just kind to them. Because
You know, I
I
think
had
I'm going through that right now because I'm trying to get people to see that mixed people are, first, they are people. We're not separating ourselves from anybody. We belong to so many different types of people, and people get angry over that because of their reductive ideologies that they are taught within their own families.
I'm sure there are people watching this now looking at you going, what does he mean he's dark? And it's like, guys, do you get that race is a construct? And do you get that there's context? And when you are mixed, you are perceived as different things by different
Right.
people, and you pay a varied tax. It's a bit of a buffet.
There are going to be people on here who say that guy is mixed because, again, they are not accustomed. All they're seeing is the complexion. Like, if you see me now in 2 weeks, I'm going to look like a totally different person.
Right. Which is another thing. Do you find that that you have a broader kind of spectrum of your color, like how pale you can get versus how dark you can get? Do you find that's broader than a
Yes, in the
monoracial
dead of
person?
winter, I'm looking like this. And this is still, because remember, I was away back in November. I'm not finished detanning yet.
Yeah.
See me, if I wasn't going anywhere, see me in about another month, you'd say, somebody get the IV. But then when you see me when I come back from my next trip, you'll be, wow, this is okay. That's when they really start to question what you are. I said, oh, you some type of Indian or Middle Eastern? I get that with this complexion, but I get it even more so with that. And it's nice because I'm not being placed in a box.
Right. So I
And
noticed it a lot as a girl, just because, and what I'm trying to say is all girls of any race will get a little bit lighter and darker winter, summer. I'm just saying, as a mixed girl, that spectrum is broader, right?
it
You're
is.
gonna look like you just bought someone else's makeup, not like you know, you know what I mean? Like how dark I can tan versus how light I can be. You'd be surprised unless you were doing my makeup. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because
It
the
makes total
skin,
sense.
the gene pool is just, it's just bigger, you know?
It is.
I don't know. It's a small
Because
little
there's so many
thing.
different variations to your undertones. Like
Yes.
I can tan really, really, really deep in a hot climate like the Caribbean.
Mm,
I do that here, I'm not going to get as dark.
yes.
The sun is not as strong here, even in the dead of summer, like August. I'm still not going to get how I would be if I was in Aruba or someplace like that.
Right. And so just talking about complexions, you know, for people that's just a it's really, people need to realize that your idea of race is literally your idea. I'm speaking to him from Africa. He does not remotely look dark to me. Does that make sense? Like, not even. You get what I'm saying? And so But also, fine, people, I who have played Snow White on stage can tell you that in certain contexts, I am seen as the dark one. Might be surprising to people, but when I'm with family who is completely blonde and ivory skinned, guess who's the dark? Do you understand what I'm saying? So
I can totally relate to that.
yes,
Believe
it's
me, I can.
context. And if you are perceived as one race, you just don't get it. How about you listen to mixed people and mixed issues? The other thing is questions about what are you? I'm sorry, sir, madam. It's not what are you, it's who are you? And who I am is a
Right.
human being with dignity. Okay? Not what is the child going to be, who are they going to be? Thank you very much.
I'm going to cop that phrase.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I like the what are you question, but I think I'm going to readdress it as the who are you question. And now that you want to ask that question, I can then let them know.
And you can say it very politely. Sorry, did you say what am I? I really would prefer who are you? You know, like just very polite.
Right.
And who I am is a human being with dignity. You know?
It's just like when someone is described, for me personally, I like to be described as a person of color because I am not an inanimate object. They said, oh, you're black. And so I said, okay, I'll hold up a shoe. This is a black shoe. This is just an object. I'm a living, breathing person. I am a person of color, not taking away from whatever my background is. If you're going to describe me, I would prefer that. There's some reductive individuals that, oh, you just don't want to be black. No. Again, I am not an inanimate object. I am a person.
Yeah, and I think people are saying what they would do in our shoes. I don't know who wouldn't want to be black. I think black people are incredibly cool, and I'm really, really proud of them.
They have shaped this world, believe me, through culture, through pop culture, through inventions, all of these things. People of African and African descent have contributed to the world that is not fully recognized.
Absolutely. And guess what? As a mixed person, a lot of the time that bothers you because a lot of the time you're going to you, it's not what is this race doing and that race doing. It's like, why is this part of my family being treated like that when that part of my family or my cousin or do you get what I mean? People don't realize how much it actually does, whatever the case is.
The resiliency that the resiliency that people have lived through. Here's a wild story for you. I have a third great grandfather that was from Africa, and he was brought on a slave ship to Barbados. There was a storm right off of the coast of Barbados, and the ship broke. Everybody drowned but him. He made it over to Barbados, and he was taken care of by a Bajan family. And this was at the tail end of slavery. So it was never really clear if he was actually definitively a slave. He probably just blended in with everybody else. And the family on that side started from there. Get this, 2 years ago, someone from the Barbados Historical Society had contacted me because of a cousin of mine, and she had heard about this particular story. So I told him the story. What they're trying to do, they want to build a monument and have the names of the people that were on there or whatever their names could have been, and also having his name as a sole survivor of that accident in that storm. And the ship is still there.
Wow. What a story. I want to see that movie.
Wild.
Can we produce the movie? The movie sounds great.
Yes.
Right, I wish. Okay, what else was I going to say? The question of fitting in. Where do you fit in? Excuse me, sir. You know what? Fitting in, first of all, that kind of question when you reduce a human being to fitting in is not anyone's highest calling, right? Fitting in is a matter of other people's acceptance. But one thing you cannot question is someone's belonging. And where I belong is with my family, right? And the truth is, you're not going to go and ask, let's say a totally white family, you're not going to ask them, why is she blonde but you're redhead but you're a brunette? It's just a physical feature anyway. Why is she blue-eyed versus you being brown-eyed, right? So why, when it's another physical feature like complexion, when those people often look even more like each other, just like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Are you questioning it? No, nobody can ever question your belonging. I mean, they could question it, but they can never substantially question your belonging, if that makes sense. So fitting in, a lot of people, so these days when I hear people ask questions like, where do you fit in, whatever, I'm not taking that personally anymore. I'm hearing that as part of your character, because what you're suggesting to me is that you would love your own child, your own brother, your own mother less if they were of a different race. And I'm so glad I'm not related to you. Do you know what I mean?
I've met people that I'm related to who have been like that. where they have ostracized their darker complected children over their lighter complected children. And this was on both sides. And it's funny, my grandfather from Barbados, wonderful man, Christopher Gordon, a Thelbert Boyce, I say proudly, and I would call him Pop. Wonderful man. Pop was, Pop was like this, but Pop was very dark here and his hands because he did outside work. He was a contractor. So it's funny, when we were little kids, he had a suntan that pretty much did not go. It was sun damage. So when we see him in the summertime, we were like, are his arms so different from his hands and his face? He had that tan from when he was living in Barbados, when he was living in Cuba, and when he came to the United States. He was not a dark complected man, but he was perceived as one. His father was a colorist. He was a biracial man, and the family that he came from, they had this air about them as well. So, of what I was told by him and a couple of others, that his father did not regard him in the same way as the other children who were light complected. And I'm like, wow, that's terrible. Your own father? So he says, my own father. But yet, look at my arms and look at my face. When you put that kind of a stigma on a child, that affects them their entire life. There's a story of a kid that I know, MGM person. He's a dark complected man, and both of his parents were very fair skinned. While the father was cutting his hair, one day, he was about 8 years old, like, this is his head, and the father's, doing whatever else. He went like this. See? You will never amount to anything because you were born with a black scalp. You tell that to an 8-year-old? When I heard this story, I was shocked. I said, why would somebody do that? This is your child. Okay? You're supposed to love this child, even if it looks totally opposite than whatever. And these are things that would stigmatize people where they become reclusive, they can be very shy, or they'll be the opposite. They'll do a number of things. Some people will be, okay, well, this is who I am and so forth. And this is what I am. And this is what I want to be seen as. Of what I know of this particular person, he was always a reserved person to begin with. He had these things in the back of his mind, but he did not let it affect his development to the point where he could not function properly in society. And he has done very well to this very day. It's sad that he had to experience those, let's call them atrocities, because how it affects you might affect somebody else. And luckily, he was able to rise above all of those things. So I've had people who have told me, my brother, he was working at a store back when we were teenagers. And I came by the store. Oh, this is my brother. He's your brother? And I'm like, that's when the tongue was a little bit sharper. Yes, racist. I'm his brother. I'm not a racist. Really? Then why did you say he's your brother? My brother and I'm told, look just alike in terms of the physical features and so forth. You could tell that we are brothers, but we don't really look alike. But people say, oh, you guys twins? Right. I said, if so, we're probably fraternal. But no, he's 3 years older than I am. Some of the things, look, there was a person who came to this very house, my cousin's wife. Not really a fan of hers, because we're sitting at the table. It was myself, her, and my sister was sitting next to me. And so she says, I would have never thought you were family because you look like anybody. I went like this to say something, and my sister took her hand and she went like this on my leg and squeezed. And so she's like, I know you're going to say something. Don't make it here. And so I said, all right, good advice. I'm not going to say anything. Ever since then, I don't really deal with that person. It's just, how dare you say that? This is my cousin here. I'm meeting you for the first time, and you're going to do that?
Absolutely. I think, if we don't do it, it's just going to happen to mixed kids. And here's the thing, you've told me that story 3 times. I think you've told it at least once on my channel. And it hurts me every single time to know that. The story about the child who was so undermined by the parent. I did want to say, and I know you said, I told you the story before, but you found it surprising. I do know of a white person whose own grandfather said, you're not my child because you're too dark. She's not dark by any stretch of the imagination, but for a white person, she's kind of just a little bit lighter than me. So like, I suppose this is a
That's
totally
ugh.
Germanic person. So I just want people to know this
Those
is a
words
much
stay
more
with you.
common.
That's a stain on your soul.
Yeah, but a racist is a racist is a racist, and it's normally that they are very. Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say, and I should say it calmly, when people do things like that, whether they're doing it, they're saying because of race or because they're ableist or whatever. It's important for you to know nobody does things to you because you are dark. Nobody does things to you because your hair is kinky. Nobody does things to you because you are disabled. They do something like that to you because they are racist. Your darkness, your shortness, whatever that's not the problem. You have every right to exist and take up space in the world. They're not doing it because there's anything wrong with you. They're doing it because there's something severely wrong with them. And I know that that might sound patronizing for me to say, but some people need to just sometimes hear it.
It's a fact.
When someone cheats on you, he didn't cheat on you because, or she didn't cheat on you because you weren't enough or you weren't this, you weren't that. It's because they don't have integrity. That's all. So the